Okay, this is lesson number 86. I'm going to skip the first little bit of lesson 86 and I'm going to start on page 357, the section called Irrational Roots. And what I'm going to do with this is look at an equation very similar to one that we did in lesson 85. You remember we had one like x squared plus y squared equals 9. And then we had another part of this equation, the system of equations, only I'm going to make this second part a little bit different. Now if you notice here, the bottom problem is a linear equation, so it makes life a little bit better. And the top, again, has exponents, so we're not able to use elimination. The only thing we can do is use substitution, and I don't really care whether you make this equal to x, x equals, or y. But usually what we end up doing is we get rid of this x because it's negative, and when we move it to the other side it makes a positive. So it just makes it a little bit cleaner. So we end up with y equals x plus 1. And then what we're going to do is wherever we see a y, we're going to put the x plus 1 in its place. Okay? So we end up with x squared plus the quantity x plus 1, the quantity squared, equals 9. And when we do our FOIL here, we get first term. Now let's put this up here, x plus 1, x plus 1. So our FOIL says we put those two together, and that gives us an x squared. The O is outside, and we get a 1x inside plus 1x plus last, which would be 1. So that gives us 2x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 9. Well, let's bring that 9 over, and that gives us 2x squared plus 2x minus 8 equals 0. That's usually what we want to do. We want that, that 0 on there. Okay, so at this point, you can see that we can get rid of the 2's. We can pull the 2's out, and we're left with that there. Okay, that looks real pretty, except for the fact when you try to factor it into two binomials. What times what gives me -4, added together gives me 1, because all I've got as an option are 4 and 1, and they multiply to give me 4, but you can't add them or subtract them to get 1. You try it with 2 and 2, you can multiply and get 4, but you try adding them or subtracting them and you either get a 0 or a 4. You don't get your 1. So that brings us to quite a mess, which brings us to the fun thing that we did the other day. Does this look familiar to you at all? X equals, let me see if I can get my light turned around here so I'm not making shadows. X squared equals -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That's what we're going to have to use when you cannot factor it. That's our option that we're going to be doing. So let's go ahead and see if we can use this problem over here and put it into the quadratic equation here. So x equals -b. I look over here at my second term, that's my b because this is my a, this is my b, and this number right here is my c. So this is a, whoops, let me try it this way, a x squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So there's my a, b, and c. So I look at the number. Let me rewrite my problem here. Okay, so my a is 1, my b is also 1, and my c is -4. Always bring the sign with it. Whoops, let's put it up there. There we go. So there's our x squared, our 1, and our -4. So a is 1, b is 1, c is -4. Okay, so let's plug those into our quadratic equation up here. So b is 1, so -1 plus or minus square root of b squared. So we look down here at what our b is, and it's a 1, minus 4 times our a. Look down here, our a is 1. Look down here, our c is -4. And we can put our line all the way across there. 2 times 1. Okay, we just keep plugging away at this. So x equals -1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared, which is 1. -4 times 1 times -4 is positive 16 all over 2. Okay, so we end up with x equals -1 plus or minus square root of 17 all over 2. But we don't like it that way. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take this 2 and put it under the 1 and under the 17. That is a better simplified answer than what we have up there. Okay, so that ends up being our x value. So actually we got two values there. We have x equals -1/2 plus the square root of 17 over 2, and we have x equals -1/2 minus the square root of 17 over 2. So both of those are my x values, but if you look back up here at the original one, we're looking for a y value as well. So we're not done until we get not only our x value, but our y value. So now the fun really begins, because now we are going to take our original problem, which we're going to pick the easiest one. Let's pick this one. Y equals x plus 1. So that's our original problem that I had up here when we were solving this. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to substitute. I've got it written right back down here. I'm going to substitute each one of these in for x to get my y value. So I'm going to take this and put it in here for x. So y equals -1/2 plus square root of 17 over 2 plus 1. Okay, so here's my x value, and then this 1 is that one right there. Okay, this one really isn't too bad, because all you're going to do then is write y equals -1/2 plus 1, which is 1/2, okay, plus the square root of 17 over 2. Okay, so when my x is -1/2 plus the square root of 17 over 2, my y value is 1/2 plus the square root of 17 over 2. Okay, now I'm going to take this x value and plug it in for this x here. So let me rewrite this. Okay, let's see if I can straighten my paper up a little bit. So now when I see an x, I'm going to put this equation in its place. So y equals -1/2 minus the square root of 17 over 2 plus 1. Okay? So nothing has changed. The only difference between this problem and this problem is there's a plus sign here and a minus sign here. Okay? So when I use the plus sign, this is what I got for my y value. When I use the minus sign, I'm getting pretty much the same thing. I'm getting y equals -1/2 plus 1 is +1/2 minus the square root of 17 over 2. Okay, so when x is -1/2 minus the square root of 17 over 2, my y value becomes 1/2 minus the square root of 17 over 2 from here. Okay? So, crazy looking answers there. I end up with 4 because if you go all the way back up here, this is showing me I'm going to have 2 x answers, and this is showing me I'm going to have 2 y answers. And when I look down here, that's what I have. When x is this, my y is that. When x is this, my y is that. Okay? So, that's pretty much what we're looking at when it comes to lesson 86. This particular problem is example 86.6 on page 357 and 358. Now you'll get to do one just like that in the practice. And then when you look at number 11,